What up, y'all? So we gotta pour one out for our niece, Claudia de Leoncourt. She didn't deserve that. Y'all know she didn't ask to be no vampire. Now, this episode was everything I thought it was gonna be. We have Santiago and Lestat both on stage. Together, you gotta expect the highest level of acting, right? But yo, let's get into the breakdown. So, the show opens up with Louis getting stomped out like he's a part of a gang or something. I'm like, yo, what's going on? He eventually gets out of the blanket or whatever they have him covered in, and he sees that they have Claudia, and they're tossing her into the pit with the rats. I was like, okay, y'all are doing a lot, Little Miss Coven, okay? Y'all ain't have to put my niece in there with the rats. Now, if y'all pay attention, remember, couple episodes back, they kept making it a point to show that room and where they dispose of the bodies. So I always paid attention to that little part. Like, yo, we gonna come back to this rat scene again. But yeah, they ain't have to do Claudia like that. Then we get to the trial and Santiago is reading off of the charges, including getting rid of Antoinette and Lestat. Louis was like, man, we were props in a play that had been carefully crafted out scene by scene. And this is what happens when the boss, Armand, is missing. He's out being in love with Louis. He didn't even catch that they were setting all this up right under his nose. Santiago was like, look, these three, they have broken all types of laws. We're going to trial and we're going to let you, the audience, decide their fate. Claudia was like, hey, yo, we ain't know nothing about no laws. And Lestat and Antoinette was trying to take us out too. And then we learned that the coven has the ability to kind of mentally paralyze Claudia, Louis, and Madeline on the stage because when she kept trying to talk, she pretty much was frozen in time. So that kind of kept them three in check from speaking out of turn. Santiago was like, look, Claudia, we don't even really need to hear your testimony because we have all your confessions right here in all of your diaries and how you premeditated this violent plot. Child, the audience was like, shame, man. They hit her with that shame from Game of Thrones.
Shame. Shame.
So I was like, ooh, y'all are really getting a show today. Santiago then passes the diary around the crowd and Louis attempts to try to lunge at him, but then he realizes that their Achilles have been sliced from the back. So they can't walk, they can't run, they can't do nothing. And this was a very common punishment back during slavery. Whenever the slaves tried to run away, if they would get caught, sometimes the owners would do all types of crazy things. And this was one of them. So Louis was back in his seat and he was like, yo, I can just feel Lestat's energy coming to the building. And then we get our first glance of Lestat and he walks in ever so dramatically. I knew he was going to make a grand entrance. He came in just like this. Now, Lestat has a way of mesmerizing the audience. I don't know what it is about him, but the audience was in total awe when he stepped on the stage. Santiago gets Lestat to swear on Claudia's diary that everything he's about to say is the truth. And Claudia was looking at him like, I don't give a fuck.
I'm still in the motherfucking house.
So Santiago was like, Lestat, what brings you to Paris? And he was like, well, I actually came over to watch the tennis match. And if Australia loses, I'm going to drain them. And the coven was looking around like, man, what the hell? He going off the script. I don't know why y'all thought Lestat was going to stay in formation. That man moves to the beat of his own drums. But he eventually gets back on task and was like, and I'm here to come to my trial. And Santiago was like, Then it was like, so let me get this straight. Your current boyfriend sold you out to your ex-boyfriend. They put you on trial. He sat back and watched it, and you still with him today?
Wait a damn minute. Wait a damn minute.
Santiago was like, Lestat, start from the beginning. Tell us this story of butchering. And Lestat was like, hold it. Get it together. This was not a story of butchering. This is a story about love. He was like, let's get this together. Now, don't mess up the story. We're going to tell the truth about what's happening here. And Santiago was looking like, oh, my God. So it's clear that at this point, Santiago is trying to steer a narrative into a way that's favorable for Lestat. But Lestat is like, nah, we're going to tell the truth. This started from love. So Lestat starts telling the story of his very first love, which was Nikki. Y'all remember Nikki was in the earlier episode. So we didn't really get too deep into his story, but Lestat begins to say, you know, I turned him into a vampire, but his mind was too fragile and he couldn't really deal with the life of a vampire. So he did get rid of himself. And then the camera kind of frames and looks into the direction of Armand. And he was like, but he didn't get rid of himself without help. So pretty much in the books, Armand kind of assists Nikki with walking out into the sun. Pretty much was like, yo, I can understand this life ain't for you. You ain't built for this vampire life. You should go into the sun. So Lestat was trying to make it be clear, like, Nikki kind of had a little push to do it. He was sad, but Armand kind of helped him along. So the camera once again pans back to Armand, and Daniel was like, so you really sat back there and you didn't do nothing? And then Louis tries to take up for him and was like, yo, he was a prisoner. He was being guarded. There really wasn't much he could do. Child, y'all, they had Sam guarding Armand. Sam was guarding Armand like this. If Armand wanted to crush Sam's brain in a split second, he could do it easily. So Armand didn't really have this big force of people guarding him. So Louis was like, Daniel, go easy on Armand. He spent the whole trial like trying to figure out a way to get me out. Hey, yo, these two, their relationship is like a standard toxic domestic violence relationship. You have Louis, the victim of the trial, taken up for the abuser and the guy who set him up. Classic DV case. This is crazy. So then we go back to Lestat, and he was like, you know, when Nikki walked out into the sun, he buried himself underground for 100 years, just grieving the loss of Nikki. Now, this story is told a little bit different. And if y'all remember in the episode when Lestat and Armand met each other, Armand made it seem like Lestat pretty much got all the gifts of being a vampire and just left high and dry. But this story that Lestat is saying, like, I didn't just leave high and dry. I went and buried myself because I was full of grief. Lestat was like, after 100 years, I got up and decided I wanted to go to New Orleans. Now, at this point, Lestat and Louis kind of look into each other's eyes. They glance at each other and they share this look of 1,000 emotions. You see pain, love, grief, betrayal, anger. Like, yo, they killed that scene. He said, as soon as I got there, I see Louis. Santiago was like, Court, pay attention. Lestat pointed right at Louis, and Lestat was like, nah, I ain't pointing at him. Get it right. I just glanced at him. Don't put actions on me that I didn't do. I didn't point at Louis. Santiago was looking like, okay, this is not going how we rehearsed, which I don't know why he thought it would go how they rehearsed. So Santiago goes on to describe Louis in a way that he was a troubled man. He was a failed sugar farmer who then started working at a brothel. Then Lestat jumps in and was like, and he was gay and couldn't even come out of the closet. Louis was like, girl, you ain't got to tell all my business like that. God damn. So then Santiago hits Louis with all the racial stereotypes. He was like, Louis was violent, cold. And then Lestat starts to paint the picture that Louis was the one chasing after him. Now, we all know that's a damn lie. Ain't nobody chasing after Lestat. Lestat was really selling it at this point, and Louis was looking like, boy, why you lying on me? You know I wasn't even paying no attention to you. You was coming on to me. Lestat was like, I was so hurt after the loss of Nikki that, yeah, I did. I offered Louis the gift of companionship, and he accepted it in the church at the altar, and we shared a sweet, compassionate kiss. Then someone from the audience screams F word, the homophobic slur of, two gay men. And then the play really go all the hell off the track because Lestat got up and zipped to that audience and was like, hey, yo, it's Pride Month. You got a problem with gay people? And the soldier was like, come on, man. Everybody has a problem with men on men. Lestat was like, well, since you sitting up here with your soldier buddies, your team, how about you tell them about how much you're a scared little, and while your homie was getting his arm blown off, you was running away. You was practically being a deserter. You was leaving your boys hanging. So since you want to embarrass me, I'm going to embarrass you now.
Period.
Then they get back to the story, and Lestat was like, look, Louis ain't really want to be a vampire. He wasn't really about this vampire life. He was out, he was eating and sucking the blood of animals, and by then, Madeline is kind of waking up a little bit, so Santiago goes to kind of calm her down and get her back under the trance that he had her in. Lestat was like, don't get it twisted. Louis had a little mouth on him. One night we got into it, and he told me that I would be alone forever. And that hurt my feelings. So by then, Lestat is walking into the audience, and he grabs the hand of one of the audience members, and the audience member is like, oh my God, this is painful. And Lestat is like, that is the feeling of vampire loneliness. It is one of the worst things in the world that a vampire could feel. So at this point, Lestat is setting the case up on how he pretty much was pressured to turn Claudia into one of their companions or daughters because he didn't want to feel that great grief or heartbreak of loneliness. So he's talking to the audience and he was like, y'all, this pain of loneliness was something I never wanted to feel. And Louis came home and told me he would never leave me if I turned Claudia. This is why I turned her. Santiago then begins reading Claudia's diary, and in the diary, Claudia is describing the fire that she was engulfed in the night that she was turned. And then Claudia stands up and goes off like, yo, I didn't ask to be no vampire. I was 14 years old. Lestat turned me and violated me. Lestat was like, hold up. I told Louis that you was too young and I didn't want to turn you at all. Louis was very persistent, so I did it. Then we get a shot of Louis and Lestat talking and they're going through the process of how they want to turn Claudia. And this is very much similar to how it happened in season 1 with some slight adjustments. You know, it's a little different story being told. As we're following the scene, we're getting way more details on the whole process. Hey, yo, the acting in this scene between Louis, Claudia, and Lestat was perfect. Like, they killed it. Claudia just laying there on the floor as Louis is dragging her. And Lestat is like, yo, bro, I'm just trying to follow the rules. Turning her right now at this age is not a good idea. She is going to be a miserable, hormonal, vampire teenager. And Louis was like, I don't care. Do it. I want a family. So he drops to his knees and he's begging Lestat. And Lestat is like, oh my God, bro. Lestat was like, this gonna be the worst decision you ever made. But I'm gonna do it because I love you. Lestat was like, look, I made her. She's my blood. That's my daughter. She one of me. So if you gonna put them on trial, I'm gonna have to go on trial too because I broke law number 2. And Santiago was like, hey, yo. Hey, you going off script. But Louis kind of groomed you and persuaded you to do it, right? So by then, Claudia's looking at Louis like, Louis, he's lying, right? Like, you didn't tell him to turn me. And Louis was like, yeah, he lying. By then, we jump back to Dubai, and Louis is like, you know what? Lestat's version of how we turn Claudia is a little bit more accurate. Use his version. His version is way better than mine. Then we jump back to the trial, and Lestat is like, you know what? I did love our little family. You know, Claudia is my daughter. She is just like me, but Louis coddled her too much. And then her emotions started getting crazy, and she just went on this insane killing spree. And then she left and went missing for like 7 years. And the whole time she was gone, Louis was depressed. Can you imagine being around him for 7 years? He's talking to me in a very nasty way. He's not touching me. So what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do when my husband is not communicating with me at all because he's sad that the daughter is gone? So yes, I got a side chick. I went and I met Antoinette, and she kind of handled the physical part of me, but who would be mad at that? And so the audience is like, yeah, we agree. You know, Louis, you're wrong. Louis is like, oh my God, bro. Lestat is like, then after 7 years, Claudia just shows up out of the blue, and she senses that our relationship is fragile, and she tried to persuade Louis to leave me. Then we get to see another side of that very brutal fight from season 1. Now, the original angle that we saw was Louis getting his ass whooped, boy. Like, that was some of the most violent stuff I had ever seen, like, on TV between 2 vampires. Lestat's version was like, nah, this was more so like a one-on-one thing. We both was fighting head up. I wasn't just beating Louis and he was laying there. Louis was coming back at me. Claudia was like, man, he tried to kill him. And Santiago was like, look, they just had a little lover's quarrel. Yeah, he dropped them over 6,000 feet up out of the air, but that's how vampires do. I was like, excuse me, sir, that's what they do? Santiago's like, Lestat, you knew Louis was going to be fine, right? And Lestat was like, nah, man, I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Matter of fact, when I done that, it completely broke Louis. He was like, matter of fact, I dropped him on purpose. I knew exactly what I did. And at this point, you can see Lestat visibly get emotional about what he did. And Santiago, on the other hand, is panicking like, oh, he going off script. Once again, what is going on? Sam Reed's speech during this point was so good. Like, he is killing this role as Lestat. I'm like, yo, the people in the crowd are getting one hell of a show. So Daniel was like, so, Louis, did you forgive his apology. Now, this shot is a pretty good shot because you get a wide scene of Louis drinking his blood out of his cup as well as Armand. Now, Armand obviously decided not to go play tag with the DoorDash man today, and he decided to eat a little pig blood because he was like, yeah, I ain't missing this part of the interview. Y'all ain't finna twist and turn and let me come home and y'all mad at me again. I ain't going nowhere. I'm sitting right here. Louis was like, man, I didn't really care about the apology, but it was enough to get Claudia up out of her seat. Yo, do you know how strong you gotta be to stand up with your Achilles torn? Claudia is crazy strong. Claudia was like, look, you attempted murder as well. You dropped him over a mile in the air and you get to come here and cry and give your apology? Yeah, we poisoned you, but we don't get to cry and say sorry and get redeemed as well. Claudia was like, what type of justice is this? Matter of fact, I'm always in the middle of you two vampires. By then, Madeline is waking up like, bitch, are we on trial? What is going on? Claudia was like, this ain't no trial. This is a stoning. This is a railroading. Lestat then continues to tell his story all the way up to the point where the coven contacts him back in New Orleans. And they were communicating with him via telepathy, and then they brought him out to Paris. We flash back to Dubai, and Louis is like, man, yo, this is hard. And then he tosses his cup of blood against the wall. Hey, yo, I did a few videos back, and I told y'all these two were basically going through couples therapy, and therapy is hard. It's uncomfortable, so I completely understand his frustration at this point. So we get back to Paris and they're about to be sentenced, and the coven is like, whoa, what are we gonna do about Madeline? Santiago was like, I ain't worried about Madeline. She's a bastard fledgling. We just gonna get rid of her too. She's not important. She was made without the consent of the Matar, which is now me. Man, Armand, you got fired on your day off, boy. Golly. The coven was like, look, it's only fair that we give her the ability to join our coven before we just toss her away. She ain't have nothing to do with what they did to Lestat. Santiago was like, well, Madeline, what's it gonna be? And Claudia pretty much gives her this look like, just save yourself. Don't get caught up in our foolishness. And Maddie was like, baby, I'm Jada and she will. I'm rocking and rolling with Claudia to the end. That's my coven. That's my gang member. The crowd then goes crazy. It's like, guilty. And she was like, man, F y'all. They pull Claudia up. The crowd says guilty for her. And she's sentenced to death as well. And she was like, look, I got one final request. Santiago was like, nope, you don't get no request. And then Lestat was like, look, let her get one last thing in. Don't be no hater all your life, Santiago. Claudia was like, hey, you, my boy up there with the hat on, can you take that off? She was like, yeah, I need to see you and I need to see the dude behind you. Yep, I got it. Claudia was like, now that I can see everybody up in here, if there's an afterlife, I just want to let y'all know, I'm coming back to get all y'all.
I'm putting cases on all you bitches. You think you can do this to me?
That's what I'm talking about, Claudia. Going out like a G. Then we get to Louis and they scream guilty as well. And Santiago was expected them to all say, you know, death. But before they can say anything, everything just froze. I'm talking about straight Sub-Zero. Wasn't nobody moving or doing anything. And then we catch a glimpse of Armand in the back, controlling everybody in the room. And the crowd started screaming, banishment. Daniel was like, wait a minute. You had enough power to save Louis, but you ain't saved Claudia? Armand was like, hey, I ain't got nothing to do with Claudia. I couldn't say, my bad. I couldn't stop what was happening to Claudia. My concern was Louis. So Santiago was like, since y'all want to do this banishment thing with Louis, put him in the crypt with the other vampires. So they pretty much buried Louis alive, put rocks over him in hopes of that he would just starve to death. Now we're left with Armand to tell the story on how we lost Claudia and Madeline because, of course, Louis was in the back, so he couldn't see what was going on. And what's so strange is it looks like they also have Lestat under some type of hypnosis or trance because he's just sitting there kind of wobbling. I don't know if they thought he was going to try to prevent them from banishing Louis or if they thought maybe Lestat would try to stop them from harming Claudia. But he obviously wasn't himself. So Santiago goes to the top and opens up the window. And Madeline goes first, very easy. Claudia, on the other hand, being the gangster that she is, does her final performance of windows when they're closed. And then she's gone. Oh, Claudia. And then their ass was back there smiling like some capital haters. And honestly, it looked like Lestat was a little sad that Claudia went away. And the final shot we get is Santiago walking off in delight. Lord, poor Claudia. She didn't deserve that, y'all. Claudia did not deserve that. And Armand, you sat there and watched it happen like a little bitch, boy. But that's okay. I ain't even worried about it because all y'all getting hibachied up next week. All y'all gonna be some fricasseed and fricassee bacon for what y'all did tonight. I don't feel sorry. But nah, in reality, yo, that was a great episode. Everybody nailed it, from the audience members all the way to the cover members. They just killed this episode. Man, I hope this show gains so much more recognition this season because this was great. The first season was good too, but this just kind of went up a level, and yo, the writing is spectacular. All the character development is awesome, man. This show is really killing it. You know, this finale is going to be kind of bittersweet because it's like, oh, this is the end, but I'm excited for it to get here. But yo, make sure y'all follow me, subscribe. I'm going to be covering the Talamasca show. I might even start watching the Mayfair Witches, but yo, leave your comments below. Tell me how you felt about this episode, and do you think the trial was fair? Thanks for hanging out with me. Peace.